Welcome, sleepy soul. Tonight I am your storyteller, your guide through shadows and whispers. Here in the dark corners of imagination, every creak, every shadow, and every whisper has a story to tell. Welcome to Creepytalks, where the night never ends and the tales are waiting for you. Story 1. The Shadow Between Sleeps. For the last 30 nights, sleep has become a punishment. Not because I can't sleep, but because something waits for me when I do. At first it was harmless. Strange dreams, hazy shadows in the corners of my room, and the feeling of someone standing behind me. I blame stress, blue light, caffeine, anything normal, anything human. But the nightmares sharpened. They became deliberate. A presence followed me into every doze, every blink, every moment my body tried to rest. He wasn't just in my dreams. He hovered at the edge of sleep, waiting for me to fall fully into darkness. I sleep in my living room now with the lights on, yet it doesn't matter. The moment my eyelids slide shut, I feel that slow, cold breath beside my cheek. When I snap awake, the air is still dented, like someone has just stepped away. 3 nights ago was the worst. I slipped into that half-sleep state where you can still see the room, but your mind is drifting away. My lamp flickered softly and the air thickened like warm fog. My limbs felt pinned, not tired, held. Then the couch cushion beside me sank, slowly, deliberately. The wood creaked under a weight I couldn't see. I felt pressure against my thigh, neither warm nor cold, just present, like a hand resting there. I tried to move, tried to scream. Nothing. And then he appeared, not walking from the hallway, sliding, a tall shadow with trembling edges, no face, no mouth, just 2 dim impressions where eyes should be. They didn't glow. They didn't shine. They simply existed. He reached out a long, jointed hand toward the wall. The moment he touched it, the paint curled and blackened beneath his fingertip. The air rippled with a vibration that rattled through my bones. Then his words entered my skull, not spoken aloud. Almost through. A pressure cracked through the room, and my body snapped free from paralysis. The shadow vanished, but the blackened handprint stayed burnt into my wall. The next morning should have felt like relief, but it didn't. My phone said 11:52 a.m. I never sleep more than 5 hours because of him, so how had I slept almost 12? My wrists were red, as though someone had gripped them, and the cushion beside me was still warm. Someone had been there, sitting, watching. My grandfather's old study came back to me then. A month ago, I had found a folder labeled Noctis. Inside were writings describing something called the sleeper shadow, something that fed on the boundary between waking and dreaming. One line stood out. Once it enters the waking room, it does not leave. Another was worse. It grows only when one sleeps alone. I live alone. And for a month, I've tried to survive my nights alone. Yesterday, out of desperation, I recorded myself sleeping. When I played the video, my body went stiff 20 minutes in. My chest stopped moving. For 7 minutes, I didn't breathe. Then a shadow moved across the lens. No source, no form, just movement. My body jerked upward violently as though yanked by invisible hands. The camera fell sideways. Before the video cut, one frame showed a tall, black shape leaning over me, its long fingers pressed into my ribs, its eyes 2 dim hollows locked onto the camera. I haven't slept since. Not properly, but he's here in the room, watching from the doorway. He doesn't need dreams anymore. Every hour I stay awake, he grows stronger. Every second I drift, he grows clearer. Tonight, he will try crossing again, and I don't know if I can stop him. Story 2. Sleep should have come easily after 30 straight hours awake, but the moment my eyes closed, even for a second, the darkness behind them moved. Not shapes, not dreams. Movement, like something pacing just beyond the surface of my thoughts. I forced my eyes open again and again until they burned, until tears blurred everything. My body was trembling from exhaustion, but I couldn't risk drifting off. Not tonight. Not with him growing stronger. But exhaustion is a predator, and it always wins. At some point, my head dipped forward, just for a heartbeat, just for a blink, and he stepped through. It didn't feel like falling asleep. It felt like the room blinked, once, and the air shifted. My vision blurred at the edges, even though my eyes were still open. My chest tightened as though someone had hooked their fingers inside my ribs and pulled. The doorway darkened. A shape slowly filled it. He didn't slide this time. He stepped, one long, soundless stride after another. His limbs bent wrong, like a marionette pulled by invisible strings. His head tilted too far to one side, as if listening to a whisper beneath the floor. I tried to stand. My knees buckled. His shadow stretched across the room, reaching my feet. The air grew heavy, thick with the smell of damp soil. My ears rang. My vision flickered like a dying bulb. Then he spoke. Not in my mind, not in the room, somewhere between both. "Your hour's thin. I can cross now." I stumbled backward, hitting the wall. My breath rasped out in shallow gas. My heart slammed painfully against my ribs. But my limbs wouldn't respond. Not paralysis, not fear. Something was draining me. My eyelids drooped against my will. From the edges of my vision, darkness pooled, thick and alive. He extended one long hand toward my face. The tips of his fingers hovered an inch from my skin. "Just a breath more," he whispered, and my body obeyed. My lungs emptied. The world tilted. Everything shifted, like the room was peeling away. For a moment, I saw something behind him, a space not meant for human eyes, a place made of folding dark, of endless corners, of shapes that were almost people but not quite, a world that pulsed like a living organism, a place where time didn't move, a place he wanted to drag me. My legs gave out. My vision collapsed inward. I felt myself slipping into that other world. Then, a sound split the air. Bang! 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 Someone was pounding on my front door. The shadow froze. The room snapped back into shape. The walls suddenly solid again. He retracted slowly, like a creature disturbed at its meal. The knock came again. Harder. "I know you're in there," a voice yelled. "Open the door." My neighbor, the one who always complained about noise. The shadow's head turned sharply toward the sound. The dim impressions of his eyes narrowed. A hiss, not quite human, filled the room. Then he dissolved. Not vanished. Dissolved. Like smoke dragged backward through an unseen doorway. My body collapsed to the floor. I sucked in air, choking on the sudden return of oxygen. I crawled to the door and opened it with shaking hands. My neighbor stared at me, eyes wide. "I heard something," she said, "like furniture moving, and—" She paused. "Someone talking in your apartment." I couldn't answer, because I knew the truth. He hadn't been talking. He had been calling me, trying to pull me through, and my neighbor had interrupted him. For the first time, someone else had interfered. For the first time, he had been forced away. But I could still feel him, not gone, just waiting for me to close my eyes. Story 3. My neighbor stayed for 5 minutes, long enough to look me over with suspicion, ask if I needed help, and tell me I looked like I hadn't slept in a year. I wanted to tell her everything, beg her to stay, beg her not to leave me alone in the dark apartment, but the words got stuck in my throat. She left, and the moment the door clicked shut, the apartment felt wrong again. Not empty, not quiet, expectant, as if he were holding his breath, waiting. I paced the living room, turning on every light, every lamp. The brightness didn't comfort me. It only stretched the shadows thinner, longer, like rubber pulled tight. They clung to the corners, refusing to retreat fully. I didn't sit down. I knew if I rested, even for a moment, exhaustion would drag me under, and he'd return stronger than before. But staying awake was its own torture. My vision doubled. My hands trembled uncontrollably. The edges of the room bowed inward like walls in a funhouse, bending toward me. I grabbed my phone. Emergency services? A friend? My sister? Who would believe me? Who would understand that it wasn't just nightmares, but something real, something feeding on my sleep? I set the phone down, and that's when the temperature dropped. Not gradually, violently. The air turned to ice so fast my breath puffed white. The lights flickered once, then steadied, but everything dimmed by a shade. The shadows on the floor lengthened, shifted, gathered. A shape rose from them, not tall this time, not full. A half-formed silhouette, twitching like something glitching out of reality. Its limbs jerked, dissolving at the edges, reforming only to melt again. He wasn't coming fully, not yet, but he was testing the boundary. The figure twitched forward, head tilting sharp and sudden, like it snapped to attention. "Your hour's break," it whispered. The voice wasn't inside my mind this time. It slithered across the room, vibrating in the air, rattling my bones. "You resist. You starve me." My throat tightened. I backed away until I hit the wall. "But the body fell," it crooned. I shook my head violently. "Stay away from me." Its distorted form convulsed, shuddering like laughter. "You invited me." "No, I didn't." "You opened. You weakened. You wandered where waking collapses." I didn't understand until I remembered my micro-sleep, when I nodded off for a second while standing, when the world blurred, when I felt him step through. That brief lapse had been enough, a single second. He drifted closer. The lights dimmed again, my vision blotched with black spots. "You near the threshold," he murmured. "What threshold?" "The end of waking, the beginning of me." He reached out, not with fingers this time, with darkness. A tendril of shadow uncurled toward me, slow and deliberate, like a burning wick in reverse. The closer it came, the heavier my eyelids grew. My breathing slowed. My chest tightened. He was putting me to sleep, forcing it. My knees buckled. The world tilted. No, no. If I fell asleep now, like this, he wouldn't just visit. He would pull me all the way in. He would drag me into that impossible world behind him. I clawed at the wall, trying to stay upright. My eyelids fluttered. Darkness dripped into my vision. He leaned closer, the shadow shifting like ink in water. "Cross," he whispered. "Let go." My body slumped. I was slipping. Then, a shrill noise exploded through the room. My phone. Someone was calling. The ringtone pierced the fog in my head like a knife. The shadow recoiled, shuddering violently. His form fragmented, twitching, dissolving, reforming. I forced myself toward the sound, crawling on the floor, fingers numb. I grabbed the phone. "My sister." I answered with a broken gasp. She was panicked. "I've been trying to call you for hours. Something felt wrong. I'm coming over right now, okay?" I stared at the half-formed shadow. He stared back. The ringtone had weakened him. Sound disrupted him. Witness had forced him back before. Maybe this was another weakness. He hissed, his voice crumbling in the air. Not much longer. Then he collapsed into the floor like spilled ink, sliding back into the cracks between the shadows. I lay on the ground, chest heaving, phone shaking in my hand. I wasn't safe, but I wasn't alone anymore. My sister was coming, and he knew it. Story 4. My sister's arrival should have felt like salvation, but as I waited trembling on the living room floor, a new fear crept over me, one I hadn't considered before. What if he didn't want to get rid of her? What if he wanted both of us? I forced myself to stand, gripping the edge of the couch for balance. My knees wobbled. My head throbbed as though someone had driven a spike directly between my eyes. Every time I blinked, a smear of darkness dragged across my vision, as if a shadow were lagging behind reality. I checked the clock, 2:41 a.m. My sister lived 20 minutes away. If she really left immediately, 10 minutes until she arrived. 10 minutes I had to survive. I stumbled toward the kitchen. I needed water, anything to keep myself awake. The overhead bulb buzzed, flickered, dimmed. My breath hitched. No, not again. The air thickened. The shadows in the corners trembled, like something breathing beneath them. The temperature dropped violently enough to make my teeth chatter. He was coming back. So soon. My micro sleeps, each one was opening a door for him. I turned on the faucet. Water splashed into a cup, but before I could bring it to my lips, the kitchen light snapped off. Everything went black. I froze. Then the darkness moved. A soft scrape echoed behind me. Not a footstep. Lighter, like long nails dragging slowly across the wall. My pulse hammered in my ears. The scrape came again. Closer. My hand shook as I reached for my phone. Its screen lit up my face with a pale glow. I held it out like a makeshift flashlight. The beam caught the wall, the hallway, the doorway, empty. I exhaled, then saw it, a hand, long skeletal fingers curling around the doorframe, nails clicking softly against the wood. He wasn't crawling through. He was hanging there, waiting, testing how close he could get. My phone vibrated, an incoming message from my sister. 5 minutes. I'm almost there. The hand tensed, as if he'd heard. Slowly, impossibly slow, he pulled the rest of himself into view. His body dangled sideways, head tilting so violently it nearly touched his shoulder. His mouth, if that slit could even be called a mouth, stretched in a way that made my vision twist. You bring another, he murmured, voice like cracking ice. A second sleeper. My throat closed. Don't touch her. His head jerked. 2 cross easier than 1. He dropped from the wall with a sickening, boneless thud. I stumbled backward, clutching the counter. But instead of rushing me, he lowered himself to the floor, limbs folding underneath like he was crouching, listening, waiting. For her. No. No, no, no. He couldn't take her too. She had nothing to do with this. She was just coming to help me. I grabbed the nearest thing, a metal pot, and hurled it at him. It passed through his side, distorting him like he was made of smoke. He didn't even look at me. His head snapped toward the front door. A soft knock. My sister's voice, muffled but bright with concern. Hey, it's me. Open up. The shadow's spine arched in a slow, predatory curve. I ran, almost tripping over myself, as he lifted his head. Darkness surged around him like a tide. Don't come in, I screamed. I lunged for the door. Something cold wrapped around my ankle. I hit the floor hard, the breath knocked out of me. He had me. A tendril of shadow tightened, dragging me backward. tore that writhing mass of darkness forming around him. My sister jiggled the handle. "What's going on? Let me in." I clawed at the floorboards, my nails scraping uselessly. His voice slithered through the apartment. "Sleep now. Cross now. Both." He pulled harder. The floor beneath me rippled, darkening, softening, like wet soil. I was being dragged under. I screamed her name. The front door burst open. Light from the hallway spilled inside. Warm, bright, human. The shadow recoiled instantly, hissing like something burned. The tendril loosened just enough for me to wrench my leg free. My sister rushed toward me, eyes wide with horror. "What the hell is that?" I didn't answer, because the thing in the kitchen, the shadow, the impossible shape that had been terrorizing me for days, it was changing, stretching, growing, reacting to her presence, not weaker, hungry. He had two targets now. He wasn't retreating, he was preparing, and the apartment wasn't big enough for either of us to escape. Story 5. My sister froze in the doorway, her breath catching as the thing in the kitchen began unfolding. Limb by limb, shadow by shadow, rising to its full, terrible height. She grabbed my arm, pulling me up from the floor. "What is that?" she whispered. But the word whispered wasn't right. It was too loud, too sharp. The creature reacted instantly. Its head jerked toward the sound, the darkness around it rippling like a disturbed pool. "Don't talk," I mouthed, barely breathing. Her fingers tightened around mine. I could feel her shaking. She wasn't supposed to see this. She wasn't supposed to be pulled into my nightmare, but now she was in the center of it. The creature leaned forward, its entire torso folding like smoke and shadow bound to invisible bones. Two faint impressions of eyes appeared, shimmering like damp ink. Two sleepers, both so close. He didn't speak this time. He exhaled. The lights flickered violently. The shadows on the ceiling bled outward, and the apartment began to change. Not physically, not fully, but reality was thinning, like plastic wrapping stretched too far. My sister squeezed my hand, pulling me backward. "We have to get out," she mouthed. I nodded. We edged toward the door, step by step. The creature didn't move. It only watched. Then, my sister's phone vibrated. The tiny buzz was enough. The creature surged. A roar, if it could be called that, ripped through the apartment. It was a sound made of breaking glass, tearing fabric, metal grinding on metal. A sound that vibrated in the bones and scraped at the mind. He lunged, not walking, not running, folding across the space, shadows bending with him. My sister screamed. Instinct took over. I shoved her toward the hallway. "Go!" She stumbled into the corridor. I turned. Too late. The creature hit me like a wave of ice. My vision exploded in black static. Shadows wrapped around my face, my chest, my limbs, pulling, drowning, smothering. My entire body went numb, then heavy, then distant. I was falling, not backward, not forward, down, into a space with no floor, no light, no edges. I heard my sister calling my name, her voice distant, muffled, like she was shouting through water. The creature's voice slid through the dark. "Cross! Finish!" Shapes formed around me, figures like the ones I'd glimpsed before. Twisted silhouettes, half human, half nightmare, stretching without form. They drifted closer, their hands inches from my skin. I couldn't move, couldn't fight. His world was swallowing me. Then, a blast of light, warm, fierce, painful. I gasped. The darkness cracked like glass hit by a hammer. My sister had pulled me, literally yanked me, back into the hallway. She dragged me across the floor, away from the collapsing shadows. The apartment door slammed shut behind us. The creature hit the other side. Hard. The door shook on its hinges. The wood splintered. The air in the hallway vibrated. But he didn't come through. He couldn't. Not fully. Not yet. We scrambled backward just as another impact rattled the door. My sister was crying, shaking violently. What? What is it? What does it want? I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. Me! Another slam. And now you! We backed toward the elevator as cracks formed along the doorframe. He was still trying, still pushing, still reaching, but he wasn't breaking through. For the first time, I saw something like boundaries, limits, rules. He needed sleep, weakness, collapse, a mind drifting between worlds. And here, in the bright hallway, fully awake, those rules held. My sister grabbed my face with trembling hands. We can't go back in there. I nodded, but I knew something she didn't. Something worse. He wasn't tied to the apartment. He was tied to me, and I hadn't slept in almost 2 days, which meant eventually, inevitably, I would collapse. And when I did, he would come through with nothing left to stop him. My sister grabbed my face. We're going to find help, real help. Whatever this thing is, we're not fighting it alone. I nodded weakly, even though I knew the truth. Help wouldn't matter. Not anymore. Because eventually, my body would give out. Eventually, I would fall asleep. And when that moment came, he wouldn't pull me in. I would fall willingly. Story 6. We didn't stop running until we reached the parking lot outside the building. Cold air slapped my face, sharp enough to cut through the fog in my mind. My sister kept glancing back at the entrance, as if expecting the shadow to burst through the door and come crawling across the pavement. But nothing followed. The night was still. Too still. Get in the car, she said, fumbling with her keys. Her hands were shaking so badly she dropped them twice before unlocking the door. I slid into the passenger seat. My limbs felt heavy, as if gravity had thickened just for me. A buzzing sensation crawled through my skull, the early warning of another microsleep. I slapped my cheeks, shook my head violently. Not yet. Not now. My sister started the engine and tore out of the parking lot. Only when we were several blocks away did she finally speak. What happened to you? Her voice cracked. What is that thing? I stared out the window. Streetlights blurred in my vision, streaking into long golden lines. It's been following me for days, I whispered. Every time I almost fall asleep, it gets closer. So it's a nightmare? No, I shook my head. It's something that waits in the space between sleeping and waking, and I've been stuck in that space too long. She swallowed. Why you? I didn't have an answer. We turned onto the main highway. For a moment, the world outside felt almost normal. Cars passed. Neon signs glowed. People existed. But inside the car, the air tightened. A pressure built behind my eyes. Subtle at first, then sharper like a hand pushing against the back of my skull. My breathing slowed. My vision darkened at the edges. No, he was pulling me, even here. My sister noticed instantly. Hey, stay with me, okay? I nodded weakly, but the pressure increased. My head dipped forward for a split second, a micro-sleep, and in that blink, he appeared in the rearview mirror, not fully, just his face, or what passed for a face. A stretched, twisting smear of darkness, two glints like wet ink where eyes should be. Watching, waiting. My chest tightened violently. Don't look in the mirror, I croaked. My sister flicked her eyes upward and slammed the brakes. The car screeched to a halt on the shoulder. She gasped, hand covering her mouth. I know. I pressed my palms to my temples. The pressure was growing unbearable. like something inside my mind was trying to tear itself open. My sister reached across the console and grabbed my arm. "You're not closing your eyes again, not even for a second." "I don't have a choice," I whispered. "My body's shutting down." "Then we need help. A hospital, a doctor, someone who can keep you awake or sedate you safely or—" "No sedation," I said firmly. "Sedation is worse. That's like handing myself to him." She bit her lip. "Then what? What do we do?" Before I could answer, the temperature in the car plummeted. Frost crawled across the inside of the windshield. The radio crackled with static even though it was turned off. My sister whispered, terrified, "He's here." But not outside, not behind us, inside me. The pressure in my skull exploded into a wave of darkness. My vision blurred. My limbs went numb. "No! No!" I clawed at the door and threw myself out of the car, collapsing onto the cold asphalt. The sky tilted. The stars pulsed. My hearing warped, stretching, bending, flattening. The world faded. My sister's voice dissolved into static. And then I wasn't lying on the road anymore. I was standing, in darkness, in his place. The ground under me pulsed like living flesh. Endless corridors of shadow twisted and folded around me. The air tasted like cold metal. Shapes drifted in the dark, too tall, too thin, too silent. He stepped forward, closer than ever, no longer a flicker, no longer a shadow, full. His voice echoed through the void, vibrating the air in my bones. "You cannot wake." I stumbled backward. "Get out of my head." "This is not your head," he murmured. "This is where you fall, where you die, where you become." The darkness thickened around his hands. He reached for me. The ground beneath me sank, like quicksand made of pure black. I struggled, sinking deeper. His fingers stretched across the void toward my chest. Then, a sound, a distant, muffled, desperate sound. My sister's voice, screaming my name. Light burst through the darkness like a crack splitting the sky. The creature recoiled, shrieking with a distorted, impossible sound. The ground under me hardened, and suddenly I was back on the asphalt, gasping, soaked in sweat. My sister kneeling over me, shaking me violently. She was crying. "You stopped breathing. I thought." I sat up slowly, my body trembling. He didn't speak. He didn't appear. But I felt him, closer than ever, attached to me. Inside the remaining thin thread of consciousness I had left. Story 7. My sister didn't waste a second. She hauled me into the back seat of the car, buckled me in like I was a child, and slammed the door shut. The engine roared to life, and she sped down the nearly empty highway, hands trembling on the wheel. The world outside was a blur of cold streetlights and darkness. Inside the car, everything felt heavier. My eyelids, my breath, my thoughts. The thin thread of consciousness I had left was fraying, one slow tear at a time. "Stay awake," she said over and over. "Please stay awake." I tried. God, I tried. But every time I blinked, even for a fraction of a second, the darkness behind my eyes twisted. Shapes formed. Whispers crawled through the edges of my mind. He was waiting, not pushing, not dragging, just waiting. Because he knew what I knew. Soon my body would have no strength left. Soon sleep would take me whether I fought or not, and that would be the end. My sister took an exit ramp and sped toward the hospital. The towering building rose ahead, glowing white against the night sky, a fragile haven of light. But as we got closer, something changed. The lights flickered, all of them. Street lamps blinked out. Hospital windows dimmed. Even the car headlights stuttered. My sister's breath hitched. "Is that him? Is he doing that?" I didn't answer, because I didn't need to. He was stretching his influence, reaching, corrupting, preparing. We pulled into the emergency lot. My sister jumped out and ran to my side, yanking the door open. "Come on," she urged. "We're getting inside." I managed to stand, leaning heavily on her. The world tilted. My legs wobbled. Every heartbeat felt slower, further apart, like time was thickening. Inside the ER lobby, the lights buzzed overhead. A nurse rushed toward us. "What's wrong?" she asked, eyes wide as she saw my condition. My sister answered for me. "He's collapsing. He hasn't slept in nearly 2 days. He's hallucinating. His heart rate is dropping. Please help him." The nurse called for a gurney. Within seconds, 2 orderlies were guiding me toward a private room. The bright white light stung my eyes. My vision doubled, tripled. I was losing the fight. A doctor appeared with a clipboard. "How long has he been awake?" "Almost 48 hours, my sister said." The doctor nodded grimly. "He's experiencing acute sleep deprivation. We need to stabilize his vitals. You need to rest." "No," I whispered. "I can't. If I sleep..." But the doctor cut me off. "If you don't sleep, you will die." His voice sounded distant, echoing, stretching. Another wave of darkness washed over me. I saw shadows flickering in the corners of the room. The blood pressure monitor flickered. The lights dimmed. My sister grabbed my hand. "Stay awake! Look at me! Stay with me!" But her voice was fading. The doctor's voice was fading. The room was fading. The only voice that remained clear was his. "Let go." I shut my eyes just for a second, and the hospital vanished. I was standing in an endless hallway. The walls were made of shadow. The ceiling bent into impossible angles. And he was at the far end, waiting. He wasn't a flicker, or a shadow, or a distorted figure. He was full, complete, towering. His presence crushed the air. "You are here," he said, voice trembling the ground beneath my feet. "At last." I staggered backward. No, I'm not. I'm still awake. I'm not asleep." "This is the moment between," he whispered. "The final threshold." The hallway warped, stretched, folded. He moved closer without walking. "You cannot run." My heart pounded. He lifted a hand, long, black, blade-like fingers unfurling. "This is where your waking ends." "No!" I turned and ran, but the hallway closed in front of me, walls folding like a living maze. His voice rumbled through the shadows. "You fall, you cross, you become." I collapsed to my knees, darkness swallowing the space around me. He reached for me. A bright flash exploded behind my eyes. A shock, a jolt. My body convulsed. My eyes shot open. I was back in the hospital bed. An alarm blared. Doctors swarmed around me. "He flatlined for 3 seconds, someone shouted. My sister screamed my name. I gasped, dragging air into my lungs as though I'd been drowning. The shadow didn't follow. He didn't appear. Not here. Not right now. Because I wasn't asleep. But I wasn't awake either. I was trapped between. And he knew it. Story 8. The room was a hurricane of panic. Machines beeping. Nurses rushing. My sister crying. Doctors barking orders. But all of it felt muted to me, like I was underwater, hearing the world through thick glass. I wasn't fully there, not fully awake, and not fully asleep. I was stuck in the threshold, the exact place he wanted me. A doctor leaned over me, shining a light into my eyes. "Stay with me. You cannot lose consciousness again. Your vitals are unstable." I tried to answer, but my mouth wouldn't form words. My tongue felt numb. My body felt borrowed. I wasn't controlling it. I was just inside it. My sister grabbed my hand. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. You're safe now." But she was wrong, because safety didn't exist anymore. Not for me. Not for her, not for anyone near me. The fluorescent lights above began to flicker, a slow, rhythmic pulse. Doctors looked up. What the? The machines around me glitched, screens distorting with static, then returning, then distorting again. My sister looked around nervously. Is that him? Is he doing this? I couldn't nod, but she saw the terror in my eyes. The shadows in the corners of the room thickened, like something was pressing against the walls from the other side, pushing, trying to seep through. One of the nurses gasped. Did anyone else see that? See what? The doctor snapped. She pointed at the far corner. Something moved, right there, in the dark. The doctor dismissed her. We're all exhausted. Focus. But the nurse wasn't wrong. The shadow did move, because he was here. He was always here, waiting for me to falter. The doctor barked, prepare a stimulant. He needs to stay awake. A second nurse hurried over with a syringe. She stepped close, rolling my sleeve up, and then she froze. Her eyes went wide. Her lips trembled. Doctor, look at his shadow. Everyone looked. My shadow on the wall wasn't mine. It was taller, thinner, its head tilted at a sharp, unnatural angle. The room fell silent. Jesus Christ, someone whispered. My sister staggered back, covering her mouth. That's it. That's him. The shadow head twitched. Then slowly, very slowly, it lifted an arm, a long, stretched arm, not matching my real one. The nurses screamed. The doctor stumbled backward, knocking over a tray. Turn the lights up. Full brightness. Now. But as a nurse ran for the switch, the bulbs overhead popped. Every one of them, showering the room in sparks. Darkness swallowed everything. Not normal darkness. Thick. Pressing. Alive. My sister screamed my name. Hands grabbed me. Gloved hands. Panicking nurses. And tried to steady me. But their touches felt distant. Like they weren't touching a person. Like they were touching something that was already slipping away. A deep, vibrating hum filled the room. The air grew colder. Breath froze in clouds. Then his voice rolled through the dark. Too many eyes, but none awake enough. Something moved by my feet, then at my side, then behind my head. Faster than a human, he wasn't limited to corners anymore. He was in the darkness itself. The emergency lights flicked on, dim red bulbs along the floor. Enough to see shapes, enough to see him. He stood behind the doctors, tall, bent, wrong, his arms dragged across the floor like tendrils of smoke. No one else saw him, only me, only the half-conscious. Wake up, my sister whispered desperately. Please wake up. But that was the problem. I was awake, just not fully. He drifted closer, only inches away, his head tilted as if examining a specimen. You are ready, he whispered. No, I breathed. He flickered, reappearing at the foot of the bed, closer. Your mind cracks. He appeared beside my shoulder, whispering into my ear. Your waking is ending. I felt cold fingers touch my temple. I gasped. A surge of darkness shot through my skull like lightning. My body convulsed. The heart monitor flatlined. My sister screamed. Doctors rushed. Clear! A shock. Light. Pain. I snapped back. The shadow recoiled, but only slightly, because the shock didn't save me. It pushed me deeper into the threshold. I felt myself slipping, falling, his world creeping in from all sides. My sister grabbed my face with both hands. Hey, listen to me. Stay here. Stay with me. Stay awake. But her voice was fading again. His was growing louder. Hush, he whispered. Come. My eyelids dropped. The real world vanished. And this time I fell too far. Far enough that I felt the ground of his world beneath my feet. Far enough that I heard the other shapes moving in the dark. Far enough that I knew part of me wasn't coming back. Story 9. The ground beneath me wasn't really ground. It felt soft, like packed ash, warm in places, cold in others, and everything around me was pitch black at first, until my eyes adjusted and I realized the darkness wasn't empty at all. Shapes moved, slowly, silently, not human, not animal. Something in between. Some crawled on elongated limbs, some floated as if suspended by invisible threads. Some clung to walls that had no texture, only shifting shadow. I stood in the middle of a vast open plain made entirely of darkness. Yet somehow I could see a faint light, dim, blue, unnatural, glowed from somewhere far above, like a dying star. And in that weak light I saw him. He wasn't far, closer than before, his figure clearer, tall, almost skeletal, no face, just smooth darkness where features should be. His head tilted when he saw me stand. "You arrive fully," he said. His voice wasn't a whisper this time. It was everywhere, around me, inside my skull, vibrating through my bones. I stumbled backward, shaking. "I don't belong here. You always did." He drifted toward me, not walking, not floating, just appearing slightly closer with every blink. Behind me I heard rustling. Something skittered, then another, then dozens. The creatures in the dark turned their heads toward me, but not to attack. They bowed. To him, like worshippers. He extended a hand, long, sharp fingers dripping shadow like ink. "Come." "No," I whispered. "I won't. You crossed too far to choose." He stepped closer. The air around me tightened, like the world itself was squeezing me. I felt lightheaded, dizzy. My vision dimmed at the edges, not falling asleep, not waking up. "Something else." He leaned in. "You are breaking." I clenched my fists. "I'm not yours." He tilted his head sharply. "You are the first in years to reach the threshold without dying." I froze. "What?" He circled me slowly. "You tore yourself from waking. You resisted sleep even when your body begged, cried, collapsed." He moved behind me, whispering close to my ear. "You forced your mind open wide enough for me to enter." A cold shock ran down my spine. "So that's why you chose me?" "I did not choose you." His voice darkened. "You chose me." My breath caught. He stepped in front of me. "You created the door." A chill washed through me, remembering every night of fear, every moment I held my eyes open until tears spilled, every time I felt him watching. "I didn't mean to." "You starved yourself of sleep," he said. "You peeled your consciousness open. You weakened the veil." He leaned closer. "You invited me." I shook my head violently. "No, no, I was scared of you." He lifted a hand. The world around us twisted. The dark plain warped into spirals. Shadows rose like waves. Screams echoed from places I couldn't see. "You feared what you awakened," he said, "but the awakening was yours." The ground beneath me cracked open. Darkness spilled upward like liquid. Creatures crawled out. Thin, lanky, faceless things that clicked their jaws even though they had no mouths. They circled me, not attacking, waiting. He raised both hands. The creatures bowed deeper. "You stand at the center of two worlds," he said. "One must claim you." My chest tightened. I couldn't breathe. My heart hammered painfully. I felt distant again, like my body was slipping away. "What happens if I don't choose?" His head tilted. "Too fast, too sharp." "Then both worlds will consume you." The darkness around me rose higher. The plain shook. The creatures hissed in anticipation. In the far distance, I heard a voice, faint, muffled. My sister, calling my name. He turned his head. He heard her too. "She pulls you," he said. She keeps you tethered. I swallowed hard. Then let me go back. His head slowly rotated toward me. No. The darkness surged upward like a tidal wave. Creatures screamed. His voice thundered. You belong where you decided to fall. The ground cracked completely. I plummeted into the abyss, falling, until a blinding white light exploded beneath me, and I slammed back into my body. My eyes shot open. I was in the hospital, doctors yelling, machines alarming, my sister sobbing. I gasped for air, but something was wrong, horribly wrong, because the shadows on the wall behind me didn't return to normal. They stayed stretched, tall, watching, and one of them moved, not his, mine. Story 10. For a moment, no one in the hospital room moved. Not my sister, not the doctors, not the nurses. Only me, and the shadow behind me. The shadow that should have been mine, but wasn't. It stood wrong, too tall, too straight, too still. Its shoulders were sharper, its head tilted at an unnatural angle. Its arms were slightly longer, stretched as though they remembered another shape. Everyone else saw a normal shadow. Only I saw the truth. The subtle twitch, the slow, deliberate breathing, the way its fingers curled when mine didn't. It was mimicking me, becoming me. My sister touched my arm carefully, as if I might shatter. You're back. Oh God, you're back. Her words anchored me, but the darkness behind me tugged, as if jealous. I breathed in, shaky. Don't turn off the lights, I whispered. The doctor nodded quickly. We won't. We're stabilizing the system now. But the emergency power flickered again, twice. Each flicker made the shadow jerk, too fast to be natural. My chest tightened. He wasn't gone. He didn't let go. He followed me. Or worse, part of me followed him back. A nurse checked the monitors. His heart rate is still too high. Blood pressure unstable. The doctor. He's in acute trauma. We need to sedate him. My eyes widened. No sedatives. You sedate me. I fall back there. My sister stepped between us. He said no. Don't give him anything. The doctor hesitated, then stepped back. Fine, but he needs rest. He's at the edge. Edge, threshold. The word made my skin crawl, because the threshold wasn't a doorway. It was a trap, and I had already fallen once. I leaned forward, gripping my sister's hand. Don't let me sleep, no matter what I say. She nodded, but fear trembled in her eyes. The lights buzzed. Everyone stiffened. I glanced at the shadow. It slowly lifted its head. The doctor saw me staring into the corner. Are you hallucinating again? No, I whispered. It's worse than that. The power surged. A deep hum filled the room. Then, the hospital lights died. Instant, suffocating darkness swallowed everything. My sister screamed. Nurses scrambled. Someone dropped a metal tray. My heart thundered, because I knew. This darkness wasn't from the power failure. It was him. He arrived, and he arrived fully. Footsteps echoed across the floor. Slow, heavy, not human. The room turned unnaturally cold. The emergency lights should have come on. They didn't. Instead, a single faint glow shimmered behind me. From my shadow, it grew brighter, blue, like the dying star in his world. A voice vibrated through the dark, not loud, not whispered, but felt. You returned broken. I squeezed my sister's hand so hard she gasped. He moved behind me, closer. You brought the fracture with you. I felt breath, cold, damp, slide across the back of my neck. My body stiffened. You are no longer bound to waking, he said, nor to sleep. Something touched my shoulder, not a hand, a claw. My sister yanked me forward. Leave him alone! Her shout tore through the darkness. A sudden flash. Not from the lights, from her phone. She turned on the flashlight. A thin beam of white light cut through the black. And for a split second, I saw him. His body stretched like smoke. His limbs bending too many ways. His faceless head inches from me. He recoiled, the light slicing into his form like it burned. The room snapped back into dim visibility. Not fully lit, not fully safe, but enough. My shadow snapped back to normal. For now, he hissed from the darkness. You cannot hold the light forever. My sister stood in front of me, holding the phone like a weapon. Her hands shook, but she didn't lower it. Try me, she whispered. Silence. The darkness around the room rippled. Once, twice, then folded inward, shrinking. He faded, not gone. Watching, waiting, but pushed back. The hospital emergency lights flickered back to life. Nurses gasped. The doctor shouted orders. My sister collapsed into a chair, shaking. I slumped back against the pillow. Alive. Barely. Then, I saw it, on the wall opposite me, my shadow. It smiled, even though I didn't. Story 11. My shadow shouldn't have been able to move. Shadows don't move on their own. They don't smile. They don't lean forward. They don't acknowledge you. But mine did. The corners of its mouth, an impossible mouth, stretched upward in a slow, jagged curve. Not natural, not human, not me. I froze. My sister followed my eyes and glanced at the wall. What? What do you see? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out, because as soon as she looked, the shadow snapped back into place. Still, simple, ordinary, like it was pretending, hiding, waiting for me to be alone. The doctor approached cautiously, maybe sensing something was deeply wrong. Your vitals are stabilizing, but you're still in extreme distress. Tell me what you're experiencing. I swallowed hard. It's not hallucinations. He's here. My sister gripped my arm. He did something to you, didn't he? I nodded slowly. He left something inside me. The doctor frowned. Inside you? I shut my eyes, remembering that moment in the threshold, when he touched my temple, when the darkness shot through me, when I felt something latch on. He didn't come back alone, I whispered. Part of him came with me. The doctor exchanged a look with the nurses, concerned but clueless. My sister didn't look clueless. She looked terrified. What do we do? She whispered. Before I could answer, a sudden sharp beep echoed from the machines. My heart rate spiked. The nurses scrambled. What's happening? My sister yelled. My back arched involuntarily. A burning sensation shot through my spine. Hot, electric, violent. I gasped as the room tilted sideways. I choked. He's trying to pull me back. The overhead lights dimmed again. A nurse cursed. Not again. And then the lights flickered fast, rapid flashes that painted the room in the stuttering white frames. With each flash, my shadow changed. Tall, twisted, bent, reaching. Closer, closer, closer. I screamed, jerking away. The doctor lunged to restrain me, thinking I was seizing. No, I yelled. Don't let the shadow touch me. But my voice drowned under the chaos. The shadow's hand, long, stretched, trembling with hunger, extended toward the bed. Then the lights went out completely. My sister's flashlight flicked on an instant later. A thin circle of light cut through the dark. And in that light, we saw it. My shadow stood separate from me, unattached. A full figure, human-shaped but wrong. It stood at the edge of the light, face blank and dark, arms loose at its sides, staring directly at me. My sister covered her mouth, trembling. Oh my God! Oh my God! The shadow tilted its head slowly, like studying a specimen, Then it lifted one foot, stepped forward, and as it moved, the darkness behind it peeled away, like it dragged a piece of the threshold world with it. The air rippled. The emergency light sputtered. A nurse screamed and bolted for the door. She didn't make it. Something slammed it shut, hard. The shadow walked closer. My body tensed. My breath turned to ice. He wasn't using the threshold anymore. He was using me, my connection, my broken mind, my fear. My sister backed up until she hit the wall, holding the phone in front of her like a glowing shield. "Stay back! Don't you touch him!" The shadow paused. Then it lifted its hand and mimicked her, mocking, taunting. It wasn't copying me anymore. It was learning, understanding, becoming something new. I forced myself upright, ripping out the IV line. The doctor yelled, but I ignored him. I had to stand. I had to face it. I had to show it that I wasn't broken enough to let it take me. "You're not him," I said through clenched teeth. "You're just a piece." The shadow's head twitched. Then, slowly, it raised its hand to its face and traced a mouth, a smile, a wider one, then wider. The smile tore upward toward where ears should have been. My sister gagged. The shadow lowered its hand, still smiling, still watching, still waiting. "Why are you here?" I whispered. The shadow took one more step, so close now, the tip of its foot touched the edge of the circle of light. Then it lifted its head and spoke, not with a voice, but with his, from everywhere in the room, from inside my skull. "You have not chosen a world yet." My blood turned to ice. My sister grabbed my arm. The shadow leaned in. "You are running out of time." Then it vanished, not faded, not dissolved, not retreated. It simply switched off. The light snapped back on. Everything looked normal, except the wall, where my shadow should have been. There was nothing, no shadow, none. My sister whispered, voice cracking, Where is your shadow?" I looked at the empty wall and answered truthfully, "He didn't leave." A cold ripple crawled down my spine. "He's inside." Story 12. The moment I said those words, the room felt painfully silent. Inside. The doctors didn't understand. The nurses didn't understand. But my sister did. Her face drained of color. Her voice cracked. "Inside? Inside you? What does that mean?" I didn't want to answer, because saying it made it real. "He didn't just follow me back," I whispered. "He merged with me." The doctor stepped closer, cautiously. "You're dissociating. You need immediate psychological—" "No," I snapped. "Stop trying to explain it with science. This isn't a hallucination. This isn't delusion. This is him. He's using me as a doorway." The air in the room shifted, cold, heavy, metallic. My sister tightened her grip on my arm. "What do we do?" she whispered. The same question she had asked before. Only this time, I had an answer. "We closed the doorway." Her eyes widened. "How?" I inhaled shakily. "By doing the one thing he doesn't expect." The lights dimmed. Doctors murmured nervously. Nurses backed away. The machines around me glitched, screens flashing with static. My heart monitor began skipping beats. He felt it. He knew what I was going to say. My sister whispered, barely audible, "What doesn't he expect?" I looked at her, then at the dark corner of the room, and said, "Letting him in." My sister jerked her hand away. "No, no, you can't do that." "It's the only way," I said. "He wants to consume me, to drag me fully into his world. But if I pull him fully into mine, he becomes vulnerable." The hospital lights flickered violently. The temperature dropped. A deep rumble echoed through the room. his anger. "You don't understand what he is," my sister cried. "I do," I whispered. "I saw his world. I stood in it. I know its rules." The machine spiked, every monitor flashing unreadable symbols. A wind, impossible indoors, rushed through the room. Shadows thickened at the corners, swirling, folding, rising like smoke. Then his voice, cutting, furious, filled the space. "You do not invite me." My ears rang. My hands trembled. But I stood. "I do," I said through clenched teeth. "You're afraid," I added. "Afraid of being pulled into this world without the threshold. Afraid of being solid, bound, trapped." The shadows convulsed, screamed. The walls vibrated. My sister covered her ears and shouted, "Stop! Please stop!" But I kept going. "Come out," I said. "Step fully into my world. No shadows, no half-forms, no threshold." Silence. A cold, dead silence. Then the shadows on the walls peeled outward, like skin splitting. A figure stepped through. Not tall, not twisted, not monstrous. Human. A man. A silhouette with edges. Weight. Form. He looked smaller, weaker. His faceless head turned toward me. "You make a mistake," he said. "No," I answered. "You did. You underestimated me." My sister clung to me, trembling violently. "What do we do now? What do we do?" I stared at the solid figure. He was bound, grounded, vulnerable, and for the first time, mortal. I stepped forward. Every movement, a battle. Every breath, a war. The doctors backed away. The nurses huddled near the door. My sister whispered, "Don't go near him." But I kept walking. He reached out, hesitant, unsteady. I reached out too, and placed my hand on his chest. Warm, pulsing, human. The moment I touched him, he convulsed, his form glitching, distorting. He screamed, not the roar of a monster, but the scream of something losing control, losing power, losing existence. His body cracked like glass. Blue light leaked out. Pieces of shadow shattered around him. He staggered back, collapsing to his knees. "You break us," he rasped. "Because I chose a world," I whispered. His head snapped up, desperate. "Do not say it." "I choose," I said. "This world." He shattered. Light exploded outward, blinding, violent, consuming. A shockwave ripped through the room. Glass cracked. Machines sparked. People screamed. And then, silence. Pure, absolute silence. When the light faded, the shadow on the wall returned. Normal. Mine. My sister crawled to me, sobbing uncontrollably, and wrapped her arms around me. The doctors approached cautiously, checking my vitals. For the first time in days, they were normal. My heart beat steady, my breathing calm. I felt heavy, exhausted, safe. The doctor placed a hand on my shoulder. "You can rest now." I nodded, and for the first time without fear, I closed my eyes. No darkness, no voices, no hands dragging me away. Just sleep. The world faded softly, gently, peacefully. But before I fully drifted off, I heard a faint whisper, not outside, inside, a memory, a warning, a reminder. "You did not close the doorway, you became it." My eyes snapped open, but the room was quiet. My sister asleep beside me, my shadow still. Normal. I exhaled shakily. Maybe it was nothing, a leftover echo. Maybe. Or maybe the nightmare didn't end. Maybe it simply changed sides. End of story.